Last week, a Los Angeles judge passed down the sentence following the guilty verdict of Danny Masterson on 2 counts of rape for offenses committed about 2 decades earlier. This sentencing made headlines, but not for the reasons you might think. And while it's newsworthy to hear that Judge Almeida decided to hand down the maximum penalty for the charges brought against Masterson, what stirred the media is the news that several of Masterson's That 70s Show co-stars, including Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher, wrote letters asking for leniency in sentencing. Which leads me to today's video, in which I, America's attorney, am going to break down these letters and why they were written. Let's get started. To begin understanding why these beloved Hollywood actors would vouch for the character of someone convicted of rape, let's talk about the purposes as a whole of these leniency letters. The simple answer is to potentially get a lighter sentence. These leniency letters are meant to show the judge, through the eyes of people close to the defendant, why the convicted criminal in question should not be sentenced to the harshest penalties available under the law. These include things like their role in caring and providing for their family, which Kutcher points out in his letter by writing, having his daughter raised without a present father would be a tertiary injustice. Sounds fancy. These letters usually also include good character values, service towards the community, and anything else the writer feels the judge should know before choosing a sentence, such as Emmy nominations. Although leniency letters are of limited value, the reason the legal system allows for them is that criminal trials are binary. Either the accused committed the crime or he didn't. In the trial, there is no room for the character of the accused. In fact, it's actually quite the opposite. That sort of evidence is explicitly disallowed by the rules of evidence in every state, including California. Because whether a person is usually a good guy is totally irrelevant as to whether the guy committed the acts in question. Enter these character letters after the fact of the trial. They aren't about guilt. They are supposed to be instructive on how much rehabilitation is needed. Maybe. So now let's break down how exactly these letters came into play when sentencing. The short answer here is not much. Crimes are graded for their level of danger or their harm to society, and rape is a very, very serious crime. But within the range associated with each crime, the judge can assign more or less time in prison. Here's the idea. Not everyone who rapes is just as bad or dangerous as everyone else who rapes. That's the idea. But when you say it out loud like that, it kind of sounds suspect? Crazy? But that's the theory. Knowing the limited impact these letters could have, multiple members of the That 70s Show cast, like Deborah Jo Rupp and Kurtwood Smith, chose to write these character letters for Danny Masterson, hoping to tug on the judge's heartstrings and maybe get a concurrent sentence instead of consecutive sentences. And as we all know, it didn't work. Masterson was sentenced to 30 years in prison despite his timeliness to work and eagerness to get to know everyone on set. The letters smartly contained recitations that he was a family man and that he was generally nice, and he didn't seem to keep committing rapes after 2003. But obviously, to the extent that any of these letters implied that Masterson didn't commit the offenses that he was already convicted of, the judge is going to ignore the letters because they're denying the legal reality. But because the letters are supposed to be a window into the heart and the life of someone who is a felon, they naturally focus on their non-felonious traits and habits. But with severe crimes comes real punishment, at least hopefully. I understand why people are up in arms about the letters of support because it's all very nuanced. And it's hard to fathom how someone who did something so bad twice can be something less than a monster at all times. But the letters argue that people change over time. Do they? Have you? The letters argue that despite some obvious wickedness, the perpetrator has good qualities. Can that be true? Is that true of you? Again, these letters are there to cast light on the fuller picture of the defendant. And people are complicated, famously complicated. Just the fact that his former co-workers would stick their necks out for a twice convicted rapist should tell the judge something about Masterson. But they don't change the worst facts. And that right there is likely why some of us are so perturbed by the letters. But there can be a darker side as well. The stagecraft of virtue signaling. It may be that some of the outrage is society's way of saying, we really hated the crimes he committed, so we're going to reiterate that we have to hate the criminal. Good grief, it's complicated. And in the end, since the crimes were so heinous, it's likely best for all of us that the letters didn't contain anything that would have dissuaded the judge from bringing the hammer. even if Masterson has many popular, pretty, and wealthy friends. Now, one quick note on these letters is that they all mention Masterson's aversion to drugs. Seeing as the vindicated victims' claims are that they were drugged before they were raped, this could be a little bit telling about their stance on the conviction, namely that they don't believe that he did it. And in that case, the judge was right to ignore the letters. So now you understand a little bit better the purpose of these leniency letters. Does it do much to change your stance on the fact Masterson's lifelong friends chose to write the letters? Is the backlash the actors are facing truly deserved? Would you write a letter for a friend who was convicted of a terrible crime? So many questions that I would like you to drop your pro se opinion in the comments down below. I want to know your thoughts. And don't forget to drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and drop a sub if you want to see more videos like it or like these. See ya.